4 con artists, 3 chilling days, 1 terrifying fate. This is the story of Ray, Marcus, Jules, and Benny. 4 men who thought they could outsmart the world, but found themselves ensnared in a web of their own making. Their tale is one of deception, greed, and a haunting retribution that none of them could have foreseen. Ray, Marcus, Jules, and Benny, 4 con artists posing as undercover cops. They had perfected their act, donning trench coats and carrying fake badges, convincing their targets that they were the law. Their latest scheme was simple yet effective. Find a vulnerable target, intimidate them, and extort money under the guise of a legal bribe. Their latest target? A frail-looking man in a long coat. He seemed like an easy mark, someone who wouldn't put up a fight. Little did they know, this man was not what he appeared to be. Surrounding him, Ray flashed a fake badge, his voice authoritative and commanding. "You fit the description of a suspect," he said, his eyes cold and calculating. The man looked up, his eyes wide with fear, but he didn't resist, he simply nodded, as if accepting his fate. "You fit the description of a suspect," Ray repeated, his voice dripping with menace. The man didn't flinch, his deep-set eyes staring back at Ray with an intensity that made him uneasy. "We can make this go away. For a fee," Ray continued, his hand outstretched. The man hesitated, his eyes darting around as if searching for an escape. But there was none. The alley was dark and deserted, the only sounds the distant hum of the city, and the beating of his own heart. The man's deep-set eyes pierced the darkness, his gaze unwavering. "I have no money," he whispered, his voice barely audible. It was the wrong answer. "I have no money," he whispered again, his voice trembling. Ray's face twisted in anger. "Wrong answer," he growled, his fist clenching. The man didn't move, his eyes still locked on Ray's. As they beat him, he uttered through bloodied lips, "In 3 days, all your time is up." His words were a chilling prophecy, a warning that would haunt them for the next 3 days. "In 3 days, all your time is up," he repeated, his voice growing weaker with each word. The con artists laughed, dismissing his words as the ramblings of a desperate man, but as the clock ticked on, they would soon realize the gravity of his warning. Day 1. Benny felt eyes on him. Shadows stretched. Phone rang. Whispered words. "Time's up." The first day was filled with an eerie sense of foreboding. Benny couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. Every shadow seemed to stretch towards him. Every creak of the floorboard sent shivers down his spine. His phone rang, and a voice whispered, "Time's up." By evening, he lay dead, eyes wide open, no signs of struggle. By evening, he lay dead, eyes wide open, no signs of struggle. His death was a mystery, a puzzle that the remaining con artists couldn't solve. They were left with a growing sense of dread, a fear that their time was running out. Day 2, Jules and Marcus hiding together. Midnight struck, power out. A whisper, "Time's up." The second day was even worse. Jules and Marcus decided to stick together, hoping that safety in numbers would protect them. But as midnight struck, the power went out, plunging them into darkness. A whisper echoed through the room, "Time's up." Marcus vanished. Jules saw a figure, then darkness. By morning, both missing. Jules saw a shadowy figure in the corner of the room, but before he could react, everything went black. By morning, both men were gone, leaving behind only signs of a struggle. Day 3. Ray, locked in a motel, gun shaking, midnight, TV static, voice, "Time's up." The third day was Ray's turn. He locked himself in a motel room, a gun in his hand, his nerves frayed. As midnight approached, the TV flickered to static and a voice whispered, "Time's up." Pitch black. Ray's scream, morning revealed only dust. 4 con artists vanished. The room went pitch black and Ray's scream echoed through the night. By morning the room was empty save for a thin layer of dust. The 4 con artists had vanished without a trace. And somewhere a frail man in a tattered coat kept walking, smiling, waiting, and somewhere in the shadows, the frail man in the tattered coat walked away, a sinister smile playing on his lips. He was waiting, always waiting for his next victims. The con artists had thought they were the predators, but they had become the prey in a game they didn't even know they were playing. The story of the 4 con artists quickly became a local legend, a cautionary tale whispered in hushed tones. Newspapers reported their mysterious disappearances, but no one could explain what had happened to them. The frail man in the tattered coat was never seen again, but his presence lingered, a ghostly reminder of the price of greed and deception. People began to look over their shoulders, fearing that they too might fall victim to the same fate. Dark alleys and shadowy figures took on a new, sinister meaning. The city was gripped by a sense of unease, a fear that the frail man in the tattered coat was still out there, watching, waiting. Detectives worked tirelessly to solve the case, but every lead turned into a dead end. The more they investigated, the more they realized that this was no ordinary crime. It was as if the con artists had been erased from existence, leaving behind only questions and a chilling sense of dread. "Time's up" became a haunting phrase, a reminder of the con artists' fate. It was whispered in dark corners, written on foggy windows, and echoed in the minds of those who dared to remember. The frail man's warning had come true, and it left a mark on the city that would never fade. The city changed. People began to lock their doors, look out their windows with suspicion, and huddle together in fear. The story of the four con artists served as a grim reminder that sometimes the hunter becomes the hunted, and in the end, no one is safe from the shadows that lurk in the dark. As the clock struck midnight, the city held its breath, waiting for the next whisper of "Time's up." The frail man in the tattered coat had vanished, but his legacy lived on, a chilling reminder that time waits for no one, and for those who dare to deceive, the price is always paid in the end. The haunting tale of the four con artists serves as a warning to all who think they can outsmart fate. In the end, the shadows always catch up, and the price of deception is always paid. So remember, as you walk through the dark alleys and shadowy streets, that somewhere out there, the frail man in the tattered coat is waiting, and when he whispers, "Time's up," you better be ready to pay the price.